It is time to transition. Welcome back to Corky Gachas, and in this video I'm going to touch on my personal Paladin transition build, the build that I'm going to use for the interim until the Paladin releases, and how exactly this build works, what you need to focus on, as well as what are some stuff that you want to take note of when it comes to going into Paladin. But before that, apologies if my voice do sound a bit different. That's because I recently got COVID. I have a bit of a sore throat, but with that out of the way, let's dive straight in. So first time I'm going to talk about the build that I use to grind, which is this build itself. You can see Vit plus 99 and then a G 55. There's no investment in strength. Okay, this is very simple. It's because you are trying to grind with sturdy strike, so you would need your Vit to be as high as possible so that the sturdy strike can hit higher damage. And also the reason why we need a G is because you are a farming build, right? So you need to hit fast, and a G does reduce the global CD of sturdy strike, hence you definitely need it. And the faster your attack speed, the faster you're going to be able to spam sturdy strike. So this is quite self-explanatory. I also do use this build for MVP sometimes when fighting the lower level bosses, the lower level MVPs, because in that scenarios, tanking isn't that much of an issue. I mainly need to do as much DPS as possible, hence I go with this build for those. For the higher level MVPs, I still stick with my other one, which is this one. You can see tank plus PvP. So this one itself, right, does have Vit in 99, and as usual, this is our intel build whereby we focus on intel. I've heard people say that they rather put more in strength, they rather put more in other aspects. I do think that that is quite unnecessary. My job is to tank in PvP scenarios just as a disruptor, hence I'm going to be adding intel. Especially the fact is a lot of people are spamming more Meteor Storm in PvP as opposed to Gravitational Field. Gravitational Field is more like for farming, I would think. So the intel here can definitely add magic defense, and it's going to come in very handy, albeit we are going to attack slower. So the last one I'm going to show you is for Lion's Roar. So as you guys can see, right, if I had to go into the skills over here, Lion's Roar actually do not scale with Vit. You are not going to be able to benefit from adding a lot of Vit. Hence, if you want to like AoE farm in certain spots, hit multiple mobs at a time, you need to have a build that is focused on strength, and this is for that build. But you do want a G instead of Vit over here. The reason why I don't have a G is because this used to be my spear build, so I don't really want to reset it. Anyways, I don't really use this build that much. I prefer farming with sturdy strike most of the time, hence I wouldn't really recommend this. But if you really want to, you can have a build like this. It's just going to cost you some resets, so I don't really suggest that. Now going into the skill build, you can see here this is being termed as grind, so this is what I use for grinding mostly. And here the first drop skills is quite simple. I'm just going to add Bash, Magnum Break. This is to unlock Aura Blade so that I can have the trans second drop Aura Blade unlocked. The sword mastery is going to be max because we are using a sword, so we definitely want that. And also I'm going to increase recovery to max. Honestly, you can choose not to go for this, but I do prefer doing this because to be honest, there's not that many skills that you really want to add anyways. So I do feel like it's okay to invest a bit more in the first job segment. And then here we have Provoke 10 as well as Endure 3. Alternatively, you can also raise Endure to higher levels if you do want to like PvP with this, but I usually use my tank build to PvP, so I don't really need the Endure over here. And also the Provoke here is because sometimes I do use this build for MVP as well, depending on, like I mentioned, right, if they are lower level, I'll just use the grind build for that. So you can see here I have 43 skill points invested in it. For the second job skills, I'm going to have Riding, Cavalier Mastery. So this is very simple because usually you need to run spots. You need to move from spot to spot sometimes, right? Not all the time, but it's going to be helpful regardless. And also this is going to be necessary for, if I'm not wrong, concentration. So this is why I have Cavalier Mastery at 5. And also the most important thing is that we need to have Sword Quicken so that we attack as fast as possible. The sturdy strikes come as fast as possible. And of course, we are going to have sturdy strike, like I mentioned. This is my main farming skill. I also added like 10 in Lion's Roar. You can choose to add 5 in Lion's Roar if you don't really use it, but regardless, it's going to still auto proc, right? So when attack, there's a chance for it to auto proc, hence I want to like add it to 10. It's not going to do the most damage, but you can definitely use it with like Swift Mending so that you get some healing when you're grinding as well. And charge attack is mainly for MVP. I can charge it to get the first strike, so this is mainly what it's being used for. Next is going to be Trans Second Drop. So for Trans Second Drop here, I do have the Joint Beat. This is the core damage where we are trying to pump up. It's the same as the Vit Tank Knight that I've mentioned previously, right? We always want to go Joint Beat with Sturdy Strike. This is going to be highly efficient. However, one thing to note is because once we are in the Urgy build, we are going to be Sturdy Striking a bit faster than the Joint Beat CD. So if you click on the Joint Beat, it can only be triggered every 1.3 seconds. Hence, your Sturdy Strike is not going to come with a Joint Beat every single the hit. So your damage wise, you need to adjust for that, be it 1 hit KO mobs, 2 hit KO mobs. You need to check for that, whether that can really be efficient enough. Next one is going to be concentration. We always want concentration for farming. Next is going to be Aura Blade. So my idea of going concentration before Aura Blade is also because I have a level 6 Dauntless Order. So that is why I can run with this first, and the defense drop is not going to be that significant when grinding, especially when paired with Baphomet JR. It's going to heal me up quite a bit so that I can sustain even without pots. For people that are struggling a bit to sustain, maybe you can consider, and you don't have like Dauntless Order level 6, maybe you can consider going Aura Blade first, max it out first. So this is really up to you. The rest of my stat point, 7 stat point, 2 is going to go into Aura Blade, and then I'm probably going to go with Berserk. This is just because there's nothing to add. You can also add Tension Relax if you want to use this as more of a MVP build for your lower level MVPs, right? But on your lower level MVPs, you honestly don't really need Tension Relax as well. So I think that going Berserk should be the right choice over here. Moving on, I'm going to touch on the skills for my tank build, and it's going to look roughly the same, just that for the first job skill itself, you can see I only have 5 in Sword Mastery. There's really no points that I can spare over here, hence I need to go for that. And Provoke needs to be at level 10. Endure is somewhat important for that magic defense, especially in like extreme challenges and stuff, so I definitely want Endure to be slightly higher. Once again, Magnum Break is here so that I can unlock Aura Blade. You do need damage as well as a tank, so definitely consider that, especially in some scenarios that I'm going to touch on that in MVP, you also need the damage wise. So going into the second job, it's going to be roughly the same, Riding as well as Cavalier Mastery. And also it's going to have Sword Quicken, but because this build is not going to rely on attack speed, we only have at level 3, we don't have enough skill points to add. We do need this tree to be maxed out. So Iron Will needs to be level 10, and the extra skill points have to come from Sword Quicken, which is why we take it out. Regardless, I don't think it's going to be a big deal because your build is not going to be focused on doing damage. It's more like tanking, it's more like disrupting. So that's why I don't think this is going to be necessary. And also we have 1 in Charge Attack. As usual, Charge Attack is very, very valuable, be it in MVP for getting first strike like I mentioned, or in this case, if I'm using this build for PvP, I do want to close the gap with the range classes or even other melee classes so that I can definitely hit them and disrupt them with my Lion's Roar and Sturdy Strike. So this is why you definitely want Charge Attack. And moving on to Tran's second job, we have Concentration. So a lot of people might be wondering why we have Concentration. So after I've gone to level 80, I noticed a big problem when it comes to tanking, and that is that I'm not sure if this is meant to be this case, but it seems like me taking less damage because I'm technically tankier with my higher defense, my magic defense, is going to play against me when it comes to damage taken calculations. I'm not sure yet. I'm still testing it, trying to fight some MVPs while I'm not wearing any armor, seeing whether there's any difference. But if this is the case, this is really quite annoying. From what I can tell, Taiwan server is not the case, so this might be a bug. I'm not too sure, to be honest. Hence, I also want Concentration because I'm going to lower my defense, and then I'm going to take more damage, especially for the lower level MVPs. But like I mentioned, you can also go with the damage route, right? So that you can deal out more damage per se to compensate for the lack of damage taken. However, this I will still have to test to see whether this is really the case or if they would take raw damage. But from what I've seen, right, the other wizards seem to take more damage than me whenever I'm putting on everything, right? So this is going to be a very, very big concern when it comes to tanking. So I'm still experimenting. I'll update you guys subsequently on the results. But for PvP scenarios, right, I would not use Concentration. PvP, I would strictly just use Aura Blade. Hence, if you're more focused on PvP, definitely you can max Aura Blade first, right, like I mentioned. So Concentration is not going to play in a part. You want to be as tanky as possible in PvP. You don't want to lower your defense so that you can get more weapon attack in PvP, especially using a Disruptor build. So this is just in case I need to MVP, and the fact that I'm going to deal more damage or take more damage because of lower defense, hence I added this. But otherwise, you can add in Aura Blade and then subsequently you can put in Berserk or whatever you wish. You can even put in more stat points in Endure if you don't really want Concentration. But personally, I feel that this might be necessary given the fact that the bug, I should say bug, right, is existing. So this is something to take note of. Joy Beat as well, always going to be included. Tension Relax is going to be the one addition from the grind build because we do need Tension Relax in PvP scenarios. It is effectively one whole extra health bar, right? 30% plus 60% over 5 seconds. So this is quite insane. You definitely want it as opposed to a grind build whereby you don't really need it. So I usually pop Tension Relax when it comes to to fighting bosses that have burst, especially Fironi with Stone of Mao, I would keep myself at a good distance and then I would pop Tension Relax so that I can take in more damage while I also heal myself. So this is going to help a lot. Berserk is really if you are desperate, right? So subsequently when I have nothing to put, I'll just put in Berserk, and then if I'm really going to die, there is no hope, I'm just going to pop Berserk, but it's not going to be key to this build at all. Now moving on to the gear, honestly there's not much difference. However, you can obviously see that I've upgraded to the level 80 set. So I have the God Knee set over here. So this 3 set gives me extra 10% of each element reduction, as well as also giving me max SP. So honestly the max SP part is not that relevant. It's mainly just this resistance reduction, right? So it can block Stormgast, it can block Meteor Storm, stuff like that. So the main thing also is that each of these sets is going to give increment to max HP as well as having the vid. So this is very relevant for a tank build, and also going into Paladin you need as much HP as possible because HP correlates with how much damage you can do. Hence you want this build definitely, which is also why I crafted it. I did explain my rationale previously. So the other difference is going to be the Excalibur. You can see this is Kado has been replaced by Excalibur. So now I do have Excalibur to +11. I'm looking forward to refining it. As you can see, my Zenny hasn't really been touched yet. I've spent a lot of Zenny on crafting the new set, but still haven't refined it yet. So I haven't spent money on the Enrich or Reese. So for the Excalibur, it's quite self-explanatory, right? You have extra vid, and then you also have a 5% chance of casting Angelus. This is very, very useful, especially if you are training by yourself on the solo spot itself. So this is going to be in scenarios whereby you don't have a priest. I'm not exactly sure whether this stacks with the priest Angelus. So if you guys have an idea, do let me know. But from what I can tell, armor equipment, right? So all this equipment itself, previously we covered the Lunar Glyph, right? The increased Urgi actually stacks with the increased Urgi from the priest. So I'm likely thinking that this is also going to be the same. So having an extra Angelus level 5 is going to be very, very good. Other than that, I also transferred my ring 1 slot to a necklace 2 slot. So this is for vid. Honestly, if you're really looking into playing a sacrifice paladin, you do want attack speed, so brooch is going to be better. However, if you're playing a bit of a hybrid itself, going vid is also going to be good. So that's why I'm going with the necklace. And subsequently, if I really have a full like sacrifice build up, I would change to brooch when I get the brooch itself. So I'm also looking for another necklace to replace this. Otherwise, I'm going to just wait till I get the brooch, or I also can change it to this one. So if you go into the guide, you can go into the equipment. This is also one of the better ones that you can change to. It's called the Dark Knight Gloves. It gives you HP plus 2%. This is the main reason why you want to use this. However, I think that there is also a set bonus with a belt. If I can find the image, I'm going to post it here. Otherwise, we are going to update it subsequently when it releases. But I do feel that this is going to be one of the good options when you want to go with any of the accessories when it comes to increasing HP as well as also increasing some of the offensive stats. Another thing that I missed out just now, I have to add this in right here, is the shield. I totally forgot about it. But when you're grinding, you definitely don't want to be equipping your shield because it lowers your attack speed. But for other scenarios, right? So when do I use my shield? You can see it's not refined yet because this is going to be in the next video. You are going to see it where I refine my shield and you are going to see how it turns out. But regardless, this is going to be relevant when you're in PvP. You definitely want it over attack speed. You definitely want it in MVP scenarios when they go berserk. That's when they hit you for a lot of damage. Also in Fironi scenarios, you definitely want it on. Like I mentioned, right, there is a chance that the reduction in neutral damage is going to hamper your progress because your damage taken is going to be lower compared to someone else without a shield. So just be flexible. As you can see over here, right, I do have it hotkeyed. So usually when going into the MVP, I will have it removed and then they will do very little damage, and then after which they go berserk, or if Fironi starts using Stone of Mount, I'll equip back on. If you don't want to have the hassle, you can always have it on. It's also going to be another route. It really depends on you. The main thing, you just want to have the neutral damage reductions, especially in PvP scenarios whereby some of the effects or some of the skills have forced neutral damage, right? Especially like Asura Strike. So this kind of thing definitely have to take note. So that's why neutral damage is going to come in clutch. Now for the rest of the accessories, namely the face wear, the mouth wear, the head wear, as well as the backpack, as much as possible, go for vid, go for HP, which is why this healing bandage is one of the best for tanking as well as for paladin subsequently because of the max HP plus 5% as well as the all stats plus 2. So this is going to be super relevant, and on top of that you also have healing receive. So this is going to be super good. One of the BIS items, right? Best in slot items. And then for the headwear itself, you definitely want to go for HP, and you can see right here I do have the watermelon head and it gives me a G as well as HP. However, I've compared the stats wise, I do lose a bit of attack speed, and given the fact that right now I am not a Paladin yet, so HP doesn't really effectively increase my DPS. Hence, I'm sticking with this Sakura headwear for now. But subsequently, I think I would switch to this. If not, I can find something better to replace it. As for the backpack, I'm just using this pouring backpack. I think everyone should have this, right? So Vit +5, quite a good filler item until I get something better from the gacha or from like the pouring chest releases. Now next, I'm going to touch on the cards. I know that a lot of people ask me what cards they should prepare for Paladin, so I'm going to briefly touch on it. And first, we're going to start with the armor, quite self-explanatory. You definitely want Peko. This is for the HP, right? So nothing too much to talk about. For the headwear itself, all this is going to be definitely not cram cut, okay? So what you really want is going to be the late Oma cut. So if you go to the store over here and we go to the cuts and go into the headwear, you can see that there is going to be late Oma cut. So it's Vit +2, and then when you upgrade it, awaken it, it goes to Vit +4, and also give you important fire damage reduction. So when tanking Meteor Storm, you're going to be a bit better for 15% at max awaken. This is one of the only cards that give you Vit on the headwear side, so this is why we really go with this. But of course now there are none being sold, right? So it's going to be a bit hard. Just put any card that you have for now. But just a disclaimer over here, for other aspects of Paladin, if you're not going sacrifice, then I feel that the cram card is still going to be decent. If you're really going sacrifice, you want to have as much HP as possible because you're going to benefit a lot less from the physical attack as opposed to you adding HP. So that is just a disclaimer for people that are not going for the sacrifice build. For your mouthwear itself, this is 100% needing to be Angeling Puppet card. Anyways, you have nothing else to add, and you optimally want something that you can slot 2 Angeling Puppet cards because 3% HP is freaking insane. So you definitely want this to happen. And then as for this, you can see I finally obtained a Eclipse card, or rather I finally redeem it because I realized that I really need this for the max HP plus 3% if I'm going for a sacrifice build. If you're not going for a sacrifice build, still I think going for Paladin, you still want to have this max HP plus 3%, and also for general tanking, max HP is going to be decent, so just go with Eclipse card. Vit +2 also going to be relevant for the Sturdy Strike, so I'm also looking to +10 my Spouters itself. Next, we are going to go into shoes. I'm running with the Martel card. A G+1 is going to come in helpful, especially since we are boosting attack speed, and once I go to sacrifice Paladin, I want to awaken this card also because attack speed is what is going to be relevant. For people going Shield Boomerang, you can choose to go with Sohi card. It's going to give you more HP, so I think that is a good option as well. Now for the accessories, the universal one is going to be Milka card, except for if you were to go into a sacrifice Paladin, I think that you definitely need Cobalt card because crit is a bit lacking, and that is what the sacrifice build really relies on. But other than that, Milka for Vit is going to be very no-brainer. Just go for it. Max HP increased by 1%, also very good. For the backpack, you have nothing else, just go with Deviling Puppet card. Now this time around, I'm also going to add in Enchants because I feel that this is going to be more important as you transition into Paladin. You definitely want to get this right. So for a Paladin, the main stats that you want to aim for when it comes to the stat points is going to be HP stats. So you definitely want HP as much as possible. If you're going for sacrifice, you do want some Agi as well. And then for the special enchantment, this is going to be where you all need HP. So you definitely want shining as high level as possible. So shining on every single piece that has shining, right? You can see all of my gear has shining right now. So this is where I'm going with. And then also for the weapons itself, if you're going for Shield Boomerang, you definitely want to go for a Legendary Bow. However, because the Shield Boomerang and Shield Chain build is both in the same build, Shield Chain actually is a melee damage. So I would suggest for you guys to go with Fighting Spirit instead of Legendary Bow because most of the time you definitely want to stick with Shield Chain. Although for some of the leveling scenarios, you do want to use Shield Boomerang. But in that case, I feel like that shouldn't be your focus, right? You should be more focused on doing as much damage as possible when it comes to MVP scenarios. PvP, so definitely go with Fighting Spirit. If you are going for sacrifice build like I am, go for all of the sharp. You need as much crit as possible. You need as much crit damage as possible. Very insane. So this one you definitely need to go with this for sacrifice 100%. So I'm going to try to change everything into sharp. Like I mentioned, right, physical attack is not going to be as relevant if you're going for a sacrifice Paladin. If you're going for a Shield Boomerang, still going to be relevant, so this is still going to be useful, hence also why you want the Fighting Spirit. So this is going to be fine for a non-sacrifice Paladin. For Shield Boomerang, for Holy Cross, I think it's totally fine, but for sacrifice, you want to change this to sharp and also get HP. That's most important. Now as for your face wear, I'm going to suggest for you to go with Sharp Battle instead of Fortifier or Divine Tax. It's because the amounts of HP is too little, but this PvE damage bonus is going to be very, very crucial. If I'm not wrong, 100 points add up to 0.1% effect. So this is going to be quite relevant, and this is one of the only ways you can get it right outside of like Deviling Cut. So this is why I suggest for the rest of the slots as well, go for either the PvP one or the PvE one, right, if available. So this one has the PvE one, go for the PvE one. The backpack should have the PvP one. Now onto the cores, this is what I usually use to grind. As you can see here, the first one is going to be Momentum Management Module level 7. I do have level 7, very, very lucky. So this is going to increase my attack speed by a lot so that I can Sturdy Strike a lot more. If you have lower level, I suggest below level 5 or maybe level 4, I don't think it's that worth it to use. Definitely try for yourself on how effective it is going to be. At higher levels, it's going to be a lot better. And also, next one we have the Dauntless Order. So Dauntless Order here is going to grant me 9% weapon attack, especially since we are going to always be using concentration. It also reduces the physical defense reduction. However, if survivability is not a problem, definitely just go with Sturdy Strike. And the reason why I don't have Sturdy Strike is because I'm a cheapo. My Sturdy Strike actually expired. If you can see over here, right, I do have a Sturdy Strike level 6, but it expired. Not going to spend my Zenny on this. Anyway, I'm going to wait until Paladin come out. So I don't want to spend that money on this. So next one is going to be my third one. As I've mentioned, Sturdy Strike is going to be good. Hence, I have a level 2 over here. Honestly, I have nothing better to put. And since I have 2 Demics, this is the reason why I have this Archdam over here. Your other alternatives can be Energy Storm. So Energy Storm here is when you Sturdy Strike every 3 seconds, right? It's going to deal 200% of attack within a 3 unit radius. So this is going to be a lot more relevant if you are not one-hit KOing the mobs, so that you can have the radius come into effectiveness, right? Otherwise, if you are one-hit KOing the mobs, I don't think this is going to be good. And then also, it's going to be Mana Length Reversal as well as Bloodthirst. This Bloodthirst is going to help you in ensuring that you have a higher chance of doing 2-hit KOs because your first hit is going to do a lot more damage. So that is what it's used for. As for Swiftman, it's useful if you have survivability issues. And this is when your Auto Lion's Roar is going to proc and heal you for 5%. Otherwise, it's not going to heal you and you will have a big problem surviving, especially if you don't have Baphomet JR, or if your Baphomet JR is not strong enough, it dies very quickly. This is when you can't AFK in peace, right? So just have this Swiftman in for survivability. Next, moving on to our second set, of course, this is where the DPS is not going to be a priority, whereby you are going to maximize survivability. So Swiftman, definitely you need it, and also whereby you need the Legacy of Will. I think Legacy of Will is actually really, really good because in a lot of scenarios, especially in like Endless Tower, where you are going to survive on low HPs, this is going to come in clutch. So for survivability, you always want, even in PvP, it's going to be relevant so that you can move out of the fray, right? Go back to your priest so that they can heal you up. And then lastly, it's going to be a flex slot. Here you can put in anything. If you want slightly more DPS, go with Sturdy Strike. If you want more of the tanky abilities, you can go with Vid. Vid also helps you boost your Sturdy Strike damage by a bit, so this is going to be a good consideration. Go with Vitality. Otherwise, you can go with either Physical Defense or Magical Defense. Nothing really too special here. This last slot is totally up to you. Now, with the builds out of the way, I know that one big question in a lot of people's minds is that how exactly do you grind with this build? Is it effective? Is it efficient in grinding? And to be honest, it's slightly slower than the Spiral Pierce build or Clashing Spiral build that we have previously. However, there is also the fact that I am currently grinding on Kobolds, as you can see on the screen right now. It's pretty fast because of our Agi. We can still optimally 2-hit KO to 3-hit KO oftentimes, and because we are spamming it quite fast, it roughly ties in with the Clashing Spiral speed. And the problem is that I do not have 2 racial/elemental cards, which is why I'm doing slightly less damage. I believe that if you were to go to something like Wind Ghost, whereby it's Demon plus Wind, I definitely can do a lot more damage and potentially 2-hit KO. However, with Kobolds, I am trying to farm the cards I mentioned. Sacrifice build do need Kobold cards, which is also why I'm farming at Kobolds. So it's slightly slower, but I still racked in around 12 million with the decline in play, right? Because I'm level 80, server level is level 75 right now. Definitely still decent leveling speed. But of course, like I mentioned, there are alternatives. If I just filter by size medium, you can see that for the level 80 to 100 range, there are a lot of units or a lot of mobs that you can farm on. Namely, most notably at this level range is probably going to be Wind Ghost. A lot of people do farm at Wind Ghost, and it's going to have a lot less HP compared to the Kobolds. So it's really up to you whether you want to farm there. Hasana, if you do want to farm for the card, although you're going to do less damage if you don't have Hydra or Skeleton Worker card. So this is just something to take note. It's just like Kobolds. And then also, up until the level 92 range, right? So if you're level 82 and subsequently people start to form parties for under C level 4, you can also join in with the Draenir plus Flora card. You can farm for device, you can go for the Shrofo, and also subsequently there is going to be a Squid Git. However, I hope that Paladin comes out before that, and then we don't have to really work on this using this build itself, right? So just fingers crossed, hopefully Paladin comes around level 86 to 88 range so that we are able to transition quite smoothly and then farm using Paladin instead. And that about does it for this video where I touch on this transition build that I'm adopting. Also, if you're interested to see how my refines go, right, how this shoe is going to turn out, definitely check out this video over here. I'll see you guys over there. This is Corky Gachas, signing off.